Listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio AM 820 brings you Family Sanctuary, a show that inspires living the gospel message in word and deed within our families. And now, Family Sanctuary with host Peggy Hartshorn.
Welcome to our program, The Family Sanctuary, focusing on life-giving relationships and the family. I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn, chairman of Heartbeat International, that advances life-affirming pregnancy help around the world. And today, we've got another in our series of programs. I hope you've been following them and finding them in the archives, that we call The Secret to a Long Marriage. And as you may remember, my husband and I celebrated our 50th this year. And so many people come up to you and say, what's the secret? How do you do that? And there's really no secret. It's what we all really know that we need to do when we marry. We're making a lifetime commitment, but it is certainly in our day and age a surprise to people that couples can be married a long and joyful marriage. So we need to share our stories. We need to tell them, how has this happened? What has the Lord done? So I hope you're following some of our stories. And today we have a really great story from some wonderful guests. Our guests today are Dick and Gina Hinterschied. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I've known Dick and Gina through the years in many ways, I think, particularly through pro-life initially. But our paths keep crossing, and I know the Lord has great blessings for that. So I've asked them to come and share their story. Dick and Gina are parishioners of St. Catherine's Parish here in the Diocese of Columbus, and they have been now for 38 of their 42 married years. So they've been married 42 years. They have 2 children who were adopted as infants and 5 grandchildren. Very similar story to my husband and me as well. Gina is still the school nurse at Hartley, where she has been for 15 years. And she also works one day a week as a school nurse at St. Catherine. And Dick is a retired businessman. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
Lots more time now for the church, for Gina,
right,
for your grandchildren.
Yes.
And in fact, they brought one of their grandchildren with us today. He's in a little carrier. Elizabeth. Wonderful. And how old is she?
8 weeks old.
8 weeks. Wow.
We have her on Mondays.
What?
It says Grandma Day.
Grandpa
Day.
Well, and we have the blessing of have her in her little carrier right here, listening to your story. So today we're going to talk about how have you done it, Dick and Gina? Let's talk about your story. And actually, to summarize the secret of a long marriage for Dick and Gina, they've chosen seeking the good of the other without counting the cost, seeking the good of the other. And I think their story really shows that. But as with Mike and me, I know Dick and Gina, you didn't, when you first got married, it obviously God's plan for marriage and exactly what you needed to do to make that marriage work wasn't perfectly clear. Perfectly clear to Mike and me in the beginning. Right. You learn it, right, don't you, along the way?
Lots of surprises. But when you did get married, you had quite a few things in common that were going for you. Tell us about your background and when you went into the marriage.
Well, we both came from very similar backgrounds. Both large Catholic families. We both had the same feelings about the faith. We were both very interested in our Catholic faith. So that made things a lot easier. We also came from the same kind of socioeconomic backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Our families were very similar, and our families... we were very close in the family.
Mm-hmm. You both had big families, didn't you?
We both had big families. My wife comes from a family of 12 kids, and I come from a family of 9 kids. We had a 3-bedroom house, so
for that big family,
right?
A lot of togetherness.
No basement. My dad said, "Listen, you got to learn to get along, or you got to get out. Those are your
no
choices."
Place to go.
And might I add, there were 6 girls in one small bathroom
in your family,
in his household.
In his household,
yes. I have 8 brothers and 3 sisters.
So you didn't have to share the bathroom with that many girls.
Right. There were 3 girls in our family. I can remember that too. You're spending too long. You've been in there 10 minutes. Well, that all adds up to a lot of relationship negotiation, doesn't it? Dealing with people with a lot of different personalities. And certainly that's an asset when you go into marriage. That's for sure. Yes. That's for sure. And I know when you went into marriage, being from 2 big Catholic families, obviously a lot of commitment in those families with the parents, tremendous commitment to each other, I'm sure. So you both, I know, also had the attitude that you were going into this for a lifetime, right, Gina?
Yes.
Yeah. This was a commitment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Divorce was not an option.
Yes.
Divorce was not an option, right.
It wasn't even anything we ever thought about
right.
We're just doing this, kind of like a just do it attitude.
Right. And Mike and I came from the same background, type of background that you did. In those days, divorce was pretty rare, and particularly in big Catholic families. So we came into marriage, all of us, Mike and me and Dick and Gina, with the attitude that, hey, somehow it was going to work. It worked for all the marriages around us. We could make it work, right? We probably didn't realize how much God would have to do with that, right? So what were some of when you did get married, Dick and Gina, I know one of the things you shared with me that the differences in your personalities, though, began to be pretty obvious. Gina, tell us about that in terms of, well, even like the communication, the need for communication in your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, one thing early on, I remember, when I say early on, probably within the first, 4 or 5 years, Dick's a much quieter person than I am. And he worked a lot of hours. He would come home late in the evening at the time when our son was just young. And so I would be home alone all day with a little baby. And he would come home and want to unwind in front of the TV. And I think I put up with that for a few years, and then finally kind of addressed that with him and, said, this is really not working well for me.
Uh-huh.
So I was surprised.
You were surprised because you felt like things were going just fine.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. And it is so important for people to speak up,
right?
In a relationship when your needs are not being met. Mm-hmm. And your need, what was your need at that point, Gina?
Well, communication for one, and just to, I think, I suppose men and women are different in this, but we need more communication to grow in our relationship and feel that connection.
Mm-hmm. Sharing your day, sharing
right, exactly.
what you were going on with the baby.
You're just not going through the day, watching some TV, hopping in bed, and, just like start a whole new day like that. You just need that connection.
No cell phones then, so you weren't texting and you weren't even talking, really.
Right. If you can come home and unwind in front of the TV, there might be a game on or whatever.
Sure.
It's kind of a cliche, but it is true, I think. Mm-hmm. When under stress, men tend to go into their cave.
Yeah.
And you were going into your cave. Gina, you spoke up, which is great.
Yes. And for me to let my stress out was to have someone to talk to about that and express, what has gone on in the day. And,
right.
I mean, not that we didn't communicate it at all, but I think
sure,
you
needed more.
Yes.
But that's a wonderful example of being able to share, I think, with each other what your human needs are. And so apparently, Dick, you were able to change. Now you've got 42 years of marriage.
Well, things are offered in the parish. And, I started going to things like, things to help men, help fathers, and got some, formation, more or less, and decided I do have to step up. I do have to talk.
Well, yeah. What does it mean to be a good husband,
right.
A good father, a
Exactly.
good leader of the family? And it is wonderful that you recognize that, and both of you recognize your needs, and it's great that there are options. Of course, there are opportunities. How many of us really go into marriage knowing exactly what it's all about? And we need help along the way, don't we?
Right.
Yes.
And you mentioned things in the parish, Dick. I know that's one thing that I love about your story is how much you really have been involved in in your parish through the years and taking advantage of the opportunities that our church offers to really grow in relationship. But one of the early challenges in your marriage, I know, was infertility, right, Gina?
Yes.
Because you expected to have a big family like you were from.
Just got married and you have all these plans that you just think, well, we're going to have lots of kids and life just doesn't always work out the way you plan.
Sure. And did that bring you closer to the Lord eventually as a couple? I mean, how did you deal with that? Would you say that struggle early on in your marriage was something that helped you develop some unity?
I think so, yes. We had to cling to one another in our sorrow and heartbreak. And I remember thinking in my mind at one time, well, we can either give up on God or embrace God. And of course, the obvious answer to that is to embrace God. And with something like infertility, I think it's not something that's real comfortable or that you can share with other people. And so in that regard, we tend to cling to each other even more so because we both are sharing that same emptiness in our heart. Yes.
And about that same time, in vitro was coming on the scene, and we thought, hey, maybe this is something for us, honey. And we went and talked with Father Hanley. He was at Christ King at the time, and he said, "No, that's not Catholic teaching." We left again, brokenhearted.
I think we were grabbing at straws. We get so much. Many people giving you advice, like, "We'll do this or do that, or you can do this." But
right.
In our situation, there were no other options that would be ethically acceptable in the church. So.
Right. So thank goodness you turned to adoption.
Yes. We're so blessed with our two children. Yes.
Yeah.
That was such a blessing.
And again, another example of how the church really helped you in that period. I mean, guided you, helped you understand what were your ethical options. And that is something about your story that is amazing to me. How much you have been involved in your church and have taken advantage of the opportunities. Tell me something about, because I asked you as we were talking before the program, if you've been involved much as a couple in your parish or in the church and how that's impacted your relationship. And as we talked, it was amazing to me how you kept remembering, well, we started with this and then we did that. Dick, tell us about some of the steps you took as a couple to get involved in your parish, and what were some of the things that you actually did along the way that impacted your relationship in big ways, I'm sure.
Yeah. Early on, we were very involved in the Right to Life movement. And actually, Gina and I co-chaired the head of the Right to Life for St. Catherine's.
Your pro-life coordinators for your parish.
Right.
Yeah. So that was your first step.
Right.
Uh-huh. So, and what was it like starting to work together as a team? I know for Mike and me, that was kind of, we, on our marriage encounter weekend, were inspired by the Talk Open and Apostolic. How can we be like the apostles, but do it as a couple? How can we get involved in something as a couple? Did you find that was enriching for your couple relationship?
Yes, I think so. And of course, when you're in that situation, the first people you go to are your friends.
Sure.
So we had friends, couples joining us, and it was very good.
Yeah.
I think too, when you do a ministry together, you have the support of one another. It's not all on one person's shoulders, and you're not leaving your spouse behind at home.
Exactly.
And then you can just share in that, and
sure.
Each of us bring a different, what I want to say.
Your different gifts.
Yes, different gifts or ideas.
Yeah. And sometimes I know for Mike and me, you see things in your spouse that you didn't realize, oh, wow, they're really good at that. Or and there can be struggles. There can be, I'm sure, because you're doing it as a couple, maybe somebody thinking, well, I'm working a heck of a lot harder than he is on that. Or
We did. That reminds me of pre-Cana.
You did
we used
pre-Cana
to do,
together,
years
yeah.
ago. At St. Catherine's, they would have pre-Cana at our parish, and we did the communication piece. Imagine that.
Learning along the way. Always learning more about
Dick
communication.
was able to share all he learned about communication. So we enjoyed doing that together. We didn't do it for a very long time, and I was kind of the catalyst for that. Again, Dick wasn't real comfortable speaking, out in public and things. So I kind of drug him along on that, but he did a good job, and we enjoyed that. And
we also did another marriage program where we had that really attracted younger couples. We had wine and cheese at our house, and
yes,
we had I can't remember the name of the program, but it was
part of Familia. It was The Splendor of Love, I believe it was.
Yeah,
that was.
So an opportunity for you to share your story with younger couples.
Right.
And I know that is so important for younger couples. Again, you remember starting into your marriage, all that you needed to really learn and grow. By the way, let me just reintroduce our guests to the audience. If you just joined us, our guests today are Dick and Gina Hinterschied. And they're talking about, I'm sorry, tell me the right pronunciation.
Hinterschied.
Hinterschied. Hinterschied. I'm sorry about that. Dick and Gina Hinterschied from St. Catherine's, 38 years parishioners there and married for 42 years. And the secret to their long marriage is seeking the good of the other without counting the cost. And we're talking about how they really came to understand that obligation of couples, that calling of a couple in their relationship to seek the good of the other without counting the cost, how they grew in that, because it doesn't come automatically when you first get married, right?
Right.
So Dick and Gina, part of your journey in learning more about God's calling for you as a couple in marriage was this tremendous involvement that you've had in your parish through the years as a couple. You mentioned starting as the pro-life coordinators, then you did pre-Cana. You were involved in a group where you shared about your relationship with younger couples, and it wasn't always comfortable because Dick, you're a little more quiet, so sharing all that, giving a talk in public was kind of a growth experience.
Yes.
Yeah. But you did it, and I'm sure that really helped in your growth and the graces you were receiving and your growth in understanding, what God was calling you as a couple. What are some of the other things you were involved in, Gina? Tell me some of the other things. At one point, you were involved in the charismatic community, I know.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We were involved with the People of God's Love community, which was a great source of spiritual growth and formation. And then I became involved with the Regnum Christi, and that's been very helpful for me in my personal growth. And
well, right now, what is the ministry that's most drawing your attention?
Yes, well, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the ministry
Missionaries
of the Sacred Heart. Dick and I go together out to assist other families, individuals to consecrate their home to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And that has been a tremendous blessing for us in our own home, in our own family, in having that consecration to the Sacred Heart, as well as helping others.
And I know you came to our home. You helped us.
It was a beautiful time, right about this time of year,
commitment to the Sacred Heart.
Right
yes, you
did.
Our family, and we had our two children who were also adopted as infants, and their spouses, and our grandchildren, and my mother was there at the time. Yeah. It was a beautiful thing. So that the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart really, really is a beautiful ministry. So it just is amazing to me how God has used you in so many ways, and that the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart. You mentioned having other couples around you as you were doing the pro-life work, and I'm sure the pre-Cana, and even as Missionaries of the Sacred Heart, they're couples that get together, don't they? And pray. Did you say once a month you have a meeting with those missionaries, other couples?
Yes.
Not necessarily couples, but some are individuals.
Okay.
And we meet once a month, and Father Stosh Daly is our chaplain, and so he gives always a beautiful meditation that we can reflect on and discuss. And then, of course, some of the meeting is business,
Sure. But taking advantage as you do it, it just amazes me the opportunities that you have, what you have said yes to when the Lord has apparently been calling you into different arenas through the years of your 38 years of marriage, or 42 years of marriage, how you have shared yourself and taken advantage of all the graces that, and then the journeys of other people that have walked along with you, the priests, the other couples, the other individuals of faith. It's beautiful how you've done that. Let's talk a little bit, because of course how you wanted to summarize your commitment was seeking the good of the other without counting the cost, and that leads me to something else that we talked about that I'd like you to share, which is your growing understanding of one of the things that our church teaches about marriage is that that one of our callings is to help, and perhaps the biggest calling, to help our spouse and our children, of course, get to heaven. So we know Jesus Christ opened those gates to heaven for all of us with his passion, death, and resurrection. So how do we help each other to get to heaven? Let's break that out a little bit. What do you believe about that? How have you challenged each other in your faith, perhaps? Gina, why don't you start? What are some of the ways that you think you and Dick have grasped onto this to accept that responsibility? And I think it probably has a lot to do with seeking the good of the other without counting the cost.
Yes, and I would add or just mention, you would just with marriage, I mean, it's just it's something you can't do alone. It's just so important to have the faith and to have the support of family and friends and these different...
and the graces of God.
The graces of God, yes, for sure. And so I guess what I'm thinking, just in the everyday life of offering those little sacrifices that come along in the everyday living together under the same roof, and different personalities and... that sort of thing, and
so you make
picking up those socks off the floor for the umpteenth time without, grumbling or complaining, right? Or I think also Dick is a much more generous person than I am, and so in our, I guess, financial giving and things, he's called me on in that respect, and I've maybe called him on in some things as well. I think those the
example of one for the other. Yeah, I think what you've said there, Gina, the little sacrifices that you make every day, sometimes overlooking, perhaps maybe Dick goes in front of the TV again, and you're thinking, didn't he notice I needed to talk?
I think there's a lot of biting your tongue.
The little sacrifices you make to preserve the relationship, to preserve that loving environment. Right. It reminds me of St. Therese of Lisieux, The Little Way, just the little sacrifices that she kept making to enhance the relationships, to offer something up to the Lord. Yes. That, of course, is a way that we help each other get to heaven. The little sacrifices, and then the challenges that the other person provides for us to expand in our charity. Like you said, Dick is more giving, more generous. That was a challenge to you to be more loving. Yeah, I think your story is beautiful in that way. Dick, what are you thinking of when you think of how spouses help each other get to heaven?
Well, one thing that we try to do is at least once or twice a week is pray together, pray the rosary together. I think that's huge. The rosary,
I think more than once or twice a week, honey,
has a lot of power in it. Maybe 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah. Well, I know you told me every time you get in the car, if you've got 15 minutes, you're praying the rosary.
Yes.
It's kind of an automatic,
Oh, we're in the car.
Yes.
Pull out your rosaries.
You don't want to waste that time. Since Dick doesn't like to talk too much.
Yeah. You can have that interchange.
When you're raising adolescents, sometimes in church or in your prayer, you'll walk away thinking, well, I forgot to pray for my wife. praying for those stupid kids.
Yeah. The kids are always in the focus. We got to pray for it. Yes, praying for each other in our couple relationships, right? Oh, but God's distributing all those graces, and He's in charge, which is so beautiful. Well, there were a lot of things that we didn't get to talk about that you've shared about your relationship, the support of family and friends. I love that, what you and I talked about before the show, that so many times the support of family and friends has been key as well, in strengthening your relationship. And I think that's true of so many of us. And I love the point you made that we can't rely on each other either for all of our happiness and joy. Dick has his friends. Gina, you have your friends. It all fits together in God's plan, that community of love.
Yes, we're not relying on one another to bring all the happiness.
Fill all of our needs.
Yes,
absolutely.
Needs,
It's an amazing thing. Well, thank you so much, Dick and Gina, for sharing your relationship today. It's been wonderful finding out more about how you have really made this journey of a long and happy marriage. Thank you for being our guests. And you are all listening to the Family Sanctuary on St. Gabriel Catholic Radio. I'm Peggy Hartshorn as your host, with archives at stgabrielradio.com. And our Family Sanctuary is broadcast at 4 o'clock every Saturday and 2 o'clock on Sundays. So join us again to strengthen our families and make them sanctuaries of life as God intends.
Family Sanctuary is a production of listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio, AM 820. Archives of Family Sanctuary with Peggy Hartshorn are available at stgabrielradio.com.
Veni, Sancte